Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool transfer show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. What a crazy turn of events it has been for Liverpool Football Club today. I simply couldn't believe what I was reading since the early hours of the day. Felt like a dream, if I'm being brutally honest. The morning started with the news that I think most of us fans half expected, and the news was that Isak has been left out of the Newcastle squad that is traveling to Singapore for pre-season preparations. Now, the narrative that Newcastle presented was that he's got a thigh injury, and that's why he's been training alone, and that's why he's not part of the squad. Well, I smell nonsense, when I see it. I'm old enough and wise enough to know that this is just a bit of cover up. In a normal scenario, maybe you could believe the situation that a player's picked up a minor injury and therefore they haven't traveled with the squad. Because of Eddie Howe's comments last week about Isak being unsettled and affected by the speculation, that's painted a completely different narrative for me. So it's quite clear that Isak wants to leave. And look at our own current situation. We've got a player in Chiesa who apparently picked up a small injury against Stoke City in our behind the closed doors fixture, and he didn't fly with the squad either. But the rumors that we're hearing is that he could be on his way out, and there is interest from Italian sides for Federico Chiesa. But the difference is between Arne Slot and Eddie Howe is that Arne Slot hasn't said anything publicly, so we're not completely sure if Chiesa is staying or leaving. But back to Isak. Uh, that wasn't the only development that we received today. It kept on spiraling as the day went on. According to journalist Craig Hope, Isak has told Newcastle that he wants to leave. And on top of that, according to the Times, he rejects a contract offer from Newcastle. Now, for me, the motion has started, the ball is rolling. So something could be happening very, very soon for Liverpool. But it's not an easy pathway. Well, it didn't appear like that first, because there's another party involved that wants to be, in the mix or in the saga, and that's Al Hilal. Apparently, they were willing to offer Isak £500,000 a week to join the Saudi team, but it doesn't appear that that move appeals to the player. Is what we're hearing from certain sources, because apparently Isak is open to a move with Premier League champions Liverpool regarded as the front runners. Now, the timing of this is getting mixed reviews because some fans are saying, why is he doing this now? He could have done it earlier. Maybe we could have saved ourselves from signing Ekatike. I think the timing is actually not that bad. Um, I know we signed Ekatike, but if you look at our rivals and all the other teams across Europe, they've pretty much signed the strikers or the attackers that they've needed. The difference is that Liverpool have the funds to go on and sign Isak right now. We don't need to sell in order to get the deal done. The money, you know, will be recouped later on with the imminent sales of Diaz and, of course, the potential sale of Darwin Nunes. So I'm not too concerned about the financial aspect of this deal. Um, but what I will say is, if we can get the deal done, we need to move fast. Now, the big question is surrounding Hugo Ekitike. The striker joined up with the squad today in Asia as part of our preseason preparations. I've said a few times this week that despite Isak being my dream signing, I don't believe Liverpool would be in the market for another attacker. We've spent a hefty amount on Ekitike. We splashed out 70 million plus add-ons that accumulates to 80 million in total. But one thing that I noticed was that he signed a 6-year contract, whereas Verts, Frimpong, and Kirkes all signed 5-year contracts. So why did he get an extra contract or extra year in his contract? I think it's because his signing was not scheduled to take place until next summer. I think we've kind of fast tracked it and brought it back into the current summer right now. I think the plan was, in terms of the blueprint for Liverpool, was that we sign Isak now and have Diogo Jota as his backup for the next season, and then next summer we recruit another attacker in Ekatike to strengthen the squad. But unfortunately, due to the tragic passing of Diogo Jota, Liverpool have had to assess the squad and they realized that they have to do something very, very soon. And especially, it felt like Isak wasn't going to be a possibility. So we got Ekitike on board under the assumption that Isak is not leaving Newcastle. But everything changed today on 24th of July, and here we are. Now there's a strong possibility that Isak could become a Liverpool player. The current rumor is that Liverpool are ready to place a British transfer record in the coming days. I can't lie, I've changed my tune completely. I've been flip flopping now. Um, I just have this strong feeling that Isak will become a Liverpool player this window. I put sentiment to one side because I've been saying it for a few days now that I feel like it would be unfair to sign someone to overtake Ekitike when he's literally just signed for a club and walked through the door. But look, I'm ready to be hurt when it comes to the prospect of signing one of the best strikers in Europe in Isak. Um, because this is just a crazy scenario altogether. And I don't think, even the most optimistic fan would have predicted what's going on right now. But we can't beat around the bush either. The club needs two strikers, especially with Diaz and especially with Nunez leaving. Uh, so you know, it could appear that we are going to have Ekitike and Isak in our team. Now, with this being a strong possibility, I needed to get my head around how the team could set up with both Ekitike and Isak in the same team in different formations. So I'll present that very shortly. But before that, we'll go through some of the comments. We'll start off with Ozan Kabak. He says, "Oh my days, it's happening, Ozzy, isn't it?" I'm not gonna lie, Ozan Kabak. My tune has definitely changed. I think it's happening. I'm going to be sharing to say I think it definitely will happen now. Hamza, big up Hamza says, do you think LFC can sign Isak and Rodrigo now? I don't think so. I think currently the situation is between, on paper, of course, it's not a situation, but it's either Isak or Rodrigo. You can't completely rule out Rodrigo. Liverpool just seem to be surprising us as we go along. And the reason I say that is because Chiesa and Elliott are expected to leave. So if you look at our squad, if those two players depart, we're very sort of like thin in numbers of attackers in our team. We might have strong players in the front line, but in terms of the bench and the general squad, we don't have the numbers to accommodate certain players, or we don't have backup for certain players. So I think it depends on if one or both of them leave. I think that will determine if we sign another attacker. I don't think it will be the caliber of Rodrigo. I think it will be maybe someone like a Malik Fofana who've been linked with recently as a player that's versatile, that can play across the front line. Rodrigo, of course, fits that bill, but I don't think he would be the one that walks into the team. So I would say no, but you can't rule it out. I said no to Isak 2, 3 days ago, and I changed my tune. So let's see what happens. Ozan come back says, Ozzy, I wanted Joao Heto, but sadly he's going to Chelsea. I saw that today as well. I saw it yesterday. It was rumbling yesterday, but it looks a bit more concrete that he's on the verge of signing for Chelsea. Yeah, it's a shame because he's a player I've rated for about a couple of years now. I've been speaking about for quite some time. I feel like he would have been the perfect player to add to our squad. We don't really have left-footed centre backs in our team, so I feel like he could have added a different balance and could also play left back. Left back's his primary role, but during his sort of younger days and as he made his name through the Ajax academy, he was predominantly playing as a centre back. So it's a shame, but as long as Liverpool can strengthen that department by possibly adding Gehi into the mix, I think that would be a very smart signing on our part. But if he ends up going there, it is what it is, I guess. Hamza says Fede Chiesa needs to stay and play more this season. I think so as well. I'm gonna go through the formations in terms of how Ekitike and Isak fit in, and for me, Chiesa is part of that mix as well. So I believe he should stay as well. Uh, Hamza said, Ozzy, when do you think we put in a bid for Isak? The current rumor today is that we're going to place a bid in some point in time. It will just depend in terms of what Newcastle present, because this time last week they weren't willing to speak to us. They pretty much rebuffed any interest that we had. And because of that, Liverpool went on to move on to another target, and we've actually signed that target in Hugo Ekitike. So if we were to approach them now and they're a bit more welcoming, open the door for us and like greet us with red carpet on the floor, then we might talk very, very imminently. So I think something will happen at some point this week. That's going to be my prediction. And I don't think it's going to be a sort of quick conclusion. I think this still might take a bit of time to finish, because whatever bid we place as our initial bid, it's not going to be exactly what they sort of value. Isak, I think we'll probably bid around a deal that's worth around 120 million. I think that's going to be our opening bid. Whether they accept that or not, it remains to be seen. Maybe we can offer Nunes as part of the deal. It's not something that can be ruled. Maybe 100 mil plus Nunes. Even that feels quite low, doesn't it? Because they value Isak at 150. So we value Nunes around 50 million as well. So just add 100 plus 50. They've got a striker in, to replace the talisman right now in Isak. We get one player out the door and we get one in. So I think that would be a logical move there, but it sounds very career mode in terms of swap deals. It's not very common in this day and age, but I think we'll make an approach at least in the next few days, and if they are open to offers, then we'll place that bid very soon as well. So it's a different stance to last week. Last week we were treading on thin ice, making sure we're not being disruptive, asking them very politely, are you interested in selling them? They would, pretty much slam the door in our face. Now we've knocked on the door and they're welcoming us. So it's a different energy right now. So I expect us to make a bid very, very soon, if I'm being honest with you. Ozan Kabak says, nah, Isak surely wants to win the Champions League. Ain't gonna happen in Saudi Arabia. I don't think so. I think it would have been a situation where if Newcastle were refusing to negotiate with any Premier League teams, of course, including Liverpool, because I feel like Liverpool are the only team that I think Isak has his eyes set on. That's when you have to involve another party, and that ends up being a team like Al Hilal in Saudi, because they've got the funds, they've got the finances to come over and blow everyone out of the way and offer a ridiculous salary, a ridiculous sign-on fees, and all that sort of stuff. So that would be an alternative for Isak, where he clearly wants more money. So that would be his sort of first pitch, where he wants more money, he wants better contract, wants better terms. So Saudi will be able to tick all those boxes. But of course, in terms of his legacy and playing at a competitive level, I think it would be unwise for him to move over to Saudi, because he's only 26 years of age. He's literally on the verge of hitting his prime years. He's been great for the last 2 or 3 years, but I feel like he's got levels to unlock even further. So hopefully he does that in a Liverpool shirt, and it's not in Saudi, because I feel like it would be a bit of a waste of talent. That Saudi move will happen for him, whenever it appears, because with these type of players, they still have that finishing ability. Even when he's like in his early 30s, and if he loses a bit of pace, he'll still have that finishing ability. And in Saudi, he'll still be able to bang in the goal. So for me, the Saudi move doesn't need to happen now. He can wait for that in years to come, and it will happen whenever in due course. But for now, he needs to play in Europe. He needs to play in a competitive league, and I feel like who else, but the Liverpool, team right now to join. We're the team on the up. We're the team that are definitely, scaring a lot of our rivals. They're speaking in fair. There's definitely a lot of concern amongst our rival fans. I'm hearing, fans crying and calling shows and all that sort of stuff. So a lot is happening right now. But it's benefiting us because we're on the pedestal. We're the one enjoying it and seeing what's happening around us. So I don't think the Saudi deal will happen. That's what I predicted. But because of Isak's stance to join Liverpool, I think Newcastle will have to do what's required. And also, they've not had the best of windows either. They've been in a window where they've been getting rejected left, right, and center. So because of that, they will need to have extra funds to try and seal the deal for certain negotiations. Which I'm not. I know they've been speaking to a lot of players, but they've been getting rejected as well. So they will need the extra funds to try and strengthen that squad and compete next season. So yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens. I'm sure we'll get some developments in the coming days. Mazzy, big up Mazzy says, Ozzy, how are you feeling today? Isak is ready. Liverpool are ready to unite and dominate world of football. With Isak in the team, Liverpool will be untouchable, bro. I'm feeling very positive today, Mazzy. I feel like the last 2, 3 days have been quite sort of cautious or logical in terms of my thinking of the current situation with the squad. I've been saying that Ekitike has come through the door. There's no way we could sign Isak to just overtake him. But we need two strikers. Let's not beat around the bush. So having Isak and Ekitike as your two strikers, it's a great combination. So rather than us having Ekitike and someone of lesser quality, why not try and get a player like Isak who's available and clearly wants to join Liverpool right now? These sort of opportunities don't occur, especially when it comes to Liverpool. We've been, unfortunately, over the last few years, we've been rejected by the likes of Bellingham, Caicedo, Chouameni, and those type of players. They've gone on to move over to different clubs. So now it feels a bit different. Now we're actually getting players, wanting to desperately join Liverpool right now. So it's good to be the talk of the town right now, and hopefully, we get Isak over the line. So yeah, should be a joyous occasion whenever that occurs. Raji Pengti, me, you said Raji Pengti. He says, "What a time to be an LFC supporter. We are going to break the British transfer record twice in one window. It's historic times at Liverpool. It is beyond our wildest dreams. I have to say, because this is nothing that any of us would envision. I know a lot of us thought we would spend a lot of money, but not the way we're doing it right now. So I'm all for it. Not going to lie. Ozan Kabak says, if we sign Isak, we are now the new Galacticos 100%. First transfer window in Premier League history. I don't think there's any window that rivals us. It's literally by a country mile. This is the best. So yeah, even if it stops now, I feel like we're definitely one of the best windows to date. So add Isak on top. Hopefully we can add Gay as well. If one of our attackers leave in terms of Chiesa or Elliot in my eyes, then we have to sign another one. So yeah, we're on the verge of having the best window. We've already won the transfer window, but that's not what I want to win. I want to win silver. I want to win titles. So that's how it should be going forward. Um, Magic says Ozzy, Isak, and Salah finish in the top three, top goal scorers in the Premier League. Now they're going to play in the same team. Absolute madness. It's what dreams are made of. Having elite strikers or elite attackers in the same teams. Um, I think they'll combine very well as well. With some players, you feel like, oh, he's got too much of an ego. He might not, gel well with the other player. I think Isak and Salah will complement each other very well because of Salah's positional sense, of course, being more of a right winger. I feel like he's quite a selfless player where he does, lay off the pass when needed, and I feel like they'll form a good partnership. So if it happens, yeah, it's something I didn't think would be a possibility, but hey, Liverpool are making dreams come true right now. That's what it feels like. So yeah, they're doing a lot for us. Um, Brainsy, big up Brainsy said, let's turn this league into a Farmers League Aussie. Hey, let's go for it. The way we're moving right now, it might end up being a Farmers League. We'll be winning back-to-back trophies, especially Premier League titles in years to come. That's the hope. That's the dream there. So yeah, fingers crossed. If we can seal the deal of Isak, we can add a few more down the line. Roger Penty says, tell us how good Isak is. What's his main strength? For me, he's a complete striker. Right now, he's the best striker in the world. Well, we've seen what he's done in the Premier League in terms of what he brings to the table. He's quite a unique striker in terms of he's not just a traditional number nine that holds up the ball. He's very, very good technically. Quite a tall player, just like Ekitike, very tall in frame, but very quick on the half turn, dribbling ability, very I think Ekitike is probably better, if I'm being honest with you. But, Isak is very direct. His shooting range is unbelievable. He can score all types of goals. Whenever we've come across him, in previous fixtures, Konate and Van Dijk have had a torrid time, and he's the one striker that I feel like really, outshone the defense where they just couldn't handle him. He was unplayable whenever we played against him. So for me, he brings everything to the table. You know, you want your striker to be tall, strong, physical, can handle himself. You know, if he has two or three defenders around him, he can do anything he needs to. He's capable of scoring goals from tap-ins to headers. He's able to produce magical moments where he'll get the ball from outside the box and shoot from distance and hit the top net. He's that striker. He's got that X factor about him. He can score all types of goals, but he's consistent with it as well. And I feel like in any opposition that we have, you know, they will be concerned about Isak. I know some will say the second best because of what Haaland has achieved, but I feel like he's got more to his game than Haaland. Haaland's a fantastic, phenomenal finisher, but Isak has more to his game because he's so good in attacking the channels. And I feel like that's what differentiates him from other strikers, especially in the Premier League. So look, if you got Isak and Ekitike, they can both play like up front role very well, but they can also play together in some shape or form, which I'll discuss very shortly. So for me, you know, this is very positive. And look, if we do sign him in this Liverpool team, he can be crowned or regarded as the best striker in the world. You know, with Florian Wirtz around him, you've got Gakpo, you've got Szoboszlai, you've got Mohamed Salah, you've got Ekitike in the mix now as well. Got a lot of players that would definitely back him and help him, you know, break all kinds of records. He'll be scoring braces and hat tricks on a regular basis. I feel like that's the kind of level he'll bring to the table. So I'm excited, honestly. I'm just waiting for the news that we made an official bid, and then yeah, the excitement level goes up a notch as well. So hoping that happen in due course. Kieran, big up Kieran says, hello there. Great news today. Amazing news today. And it should be getting better once we make some official bids. So yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you for tuning as well. Bob Mark, big up Mob. He says Trent fuming. he he certainly is, and I think his best friend in Jude Bellingham's been injured for a few months as well now. So yeah, it'll be very, very lonely in Madrid. But look, I could not care less about number 66, honestly. He made his decision, and Liverpool have just literally moved on and it's showing him, you know, different levels in terms of how we're moving right now. So I'm loving the way Liverpool are doing business at the minute. But Mark says, I think Salah will get less goals next season, but a lot more assists. That could be the case, but look, as long as it helps the team win trophies and accomplish, you know, amazing things, I'm all for it. Ozan Kabak says John Henry attended the parade and decided he wants to attend more parades in the Liverpool City Centre. That might have done it, you know. You know, he saw the number of fans that came, 1.5 million fans, and I was one of them, came to the parade. And what a joyous occasion it was. So that must have been an eye opener because, you know, you'll come to matches and it's, you know, 40, 50, 60,000 people there, which of course is crazy because it's very loud, amazing atmosphere, you know, in stadiums. But when you're seeing the love and support, you know, on the streets where it's covering a lot of miles and you're on a bus and you're seeing so many faces, people from all over the world have come over to celebrate in that parade. It's an eye opener. So maybe he realized for the first time, which is silly to say out loud, but maybe he realized Liverpool's actually a big club. So we've got to start acting like a big club now. So we're on that way now. So thank God, you know, John Henry has seen the light and, you know, he's really helping us form a formidable and complete squad right now. So that's the positive, you know, going into next season. Now, as I mentioned previously, I'm trying to get my head around the possibility of having both Ekitike and Isak in the same starting lineup. So I'm going to present a graphic and then we'll go through different formations and feel free to give me your take and let me know what you think. So let's start with our traditional, you know, 4-2-3-1 formation. I've got the whole team lineup there, but the focus is more midfield and attack. So if you look at the midfield, it's going to be McAllister, Groundberg with Endo and Jones as cover. That's going to be the constant theme throughout the different formations that I'm going to present. But in an advanced midfield role, it's going to be a little bit more different. So we've got Salah on the right. I've got Elliot there because he's still currently a Liverpool player, so he'll be his backup on paper. Then you got Wirtz and Szoboszlai, and I've got Ekitike playing on the left wing and Gakpo on the left as his sort of backup as well. A lot of fans will be like, that's not his natural position. But what I do know is he used to play left wing in his younger days. So it's not something that he's not familiar with. It might not be his favorite role, but I don't think he'll be playing as a sort of out and out type of winger. I think he'll be more of an inside forward where he comes in a little bit more. And then you have Salah, a bit more wide where he'll provide the assist. So you end up having like two here, but one of the strikers or one of the wide attackers, being in that kind of area. So he's not going to be that type of player. He's going to be over here, and then you're going to have Kirkes, bombing down the flanks to provide the width on that left hand side. So for me, that would be the sort of static formation, but I see, Ekitike being more of a wide, or should I say, more of an inside forward rather than a wide forward in this formation. So this would be the team that I would have in our 4-2-3-1 formation, which is what we currently play. But let's move on and try and think a bit more creatively. What if we switched up our formation completely? Some of these suggestions, might not be bulletproof in terms of, the idea, but it's only right that we scope and see, what could work. So we could go for a 4-2-2-2 formation where you've got a double pivot of Groundwork, McAllister, and you've got Salah and Verts, and then you've got Ekitike and Isak. Of course, these players would, go a little bit wider, so it'll be more like this rather than it being, literally all down the middle. But it allows some sort of interchange where, a player might go a bit more here, Salah come in and field a little bit more. But I see it being more like this, where you've got more inside midfielders coming from the flanks, and you've got Hugo Katika and Isak playing, uh, as two strikers. The only thing is that I feel like in this situation, you might see Ekatika drop deep a little bit more, and Isak being the more sort of focal point, the player more further up top. So that could be, the way that we play, or that could be the transition. So I feel like if we were playing with two strikers, it could work. Because I have said in the past, I'm not sure if it would work stylistically because they both have very similar traits. But the difference between the two is that I think Ekitike is a better link-up player, and he likes to drop deep in comparison to Isak, whereas Isak likes to attack the channels a bit more. So I can see it where Ekitike drops deep, and then you have Isak, roaming around here, even if he's, attacking the channel, you have Ekitike in the middle, and then he'll provide that striker's touch with finishes, coming from a deeper position inside the box and finishing from close range. So that could definitely work in terms of how we set up going forward. So it could be a sort of a 4-2-2, but it's not my sort of favorite role because I feel like I'm showing it in a very static form right now, but teams that have very pacey wingers or fullbacks could exploit the area because we're a bit more narrow than normal. So, not my favorite role, but you could see, this could work. Of course, there would have to be slight variation in terms of where people are placed, but it's predominantly a 4-2-2-2 formation. Now, if we were to sort of move on, um, let's move on to a traditional 4-4-2. I don't think this will happen, but we do have the personnel to do this. So in terms of our midfield four, you have Salah with Elliot as his backup. Then you've got Gravenberch, McAllister, and then you've got Verts on the left. So the backup for Gravenberch would be Endo, for McAllister would be Jones, and Szoboszlai would be a backup for Verts, which I feel like would work because both players have played in left-sided in positions in their previous careers, or should I say previous clubs. So it's not unfamiliar roles for those two players, and they could do a good job. And I've seen them being more, inside players as well, especially with Salah. So I've seen it where they go a bit more advanced, and then there'll be sort of like a hybrid where they'll be in between the lines. When they need to go wide, they'll go wide. If they need to go in, they'll go in. So that could definitely work going forward. And then you've got Ekitike and Isak, similar to my previous formation, where if they're playing in the two, I expect one to drop deep and I expect one to be a bit more forward. And that's how I see it being presented. So another variation in terms of what it could be presented in a 4-4-2 formation. Um, Another formation that I have in mind that I feel like could work is this. It's a pretty much a 4-3-3, but I've labeled it as a 4-1-2-3 formation. And I'll explain why. Because rather than having as a double pivot, I think Groundberg will be the sort of the single pivot player. But what will happen is you'll have Frimpong, and Kirkes bombing down those flanks, and then you end up having Konate drifting over to the right, Virgil to the left, and then you have Gravenberch dropping deep, playing like a sweeper in his formation, and then you've got McAllister playing a little bit deeper or more as a playmaker in the middle of the park, and then you've got Verts in this kind of area. And the way I see Salah and Ekitike playing, I see Salah and Ekitike becoming more as inside forwards rather than wingers because these guys are the ones that are going to provide the width in this team. So this could really work. Having Ekitike more as an inside forward for me will definitely play to his strengths and his ability. And if we were to play him alongside Isak in a two sort of a duo in terms of a strike force, Ekitike will be the one that drops deep, and Isak's the one that is playing on the shoulder and causing havoc against the opposition. So for me, it could work in any of these formations. I'm showing different variations, but it can definitely work. But maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself and thinking I must fit two of the new signings together. It might just be a simple logical approach where Arne Slot's like, you know what? No, Isak, you're the main striker. Ekitike can be backup. But in terms of the rest of the team, you have Salah, Verts, and Gakpo. And then I think you've got Chiesa, Szoboszlai, and Elliott as your backups there as well. So in these formations, you'll probably notice that I mentioned Chiesa and Elliott in every system there. I think it's vital that we keep both players. I don't think it makes sense to do it now. With Chiesa, of course, he probably has ambitions to move over back to Italy and solidify his sort of chances of being selected for the World Cup squad. But I don't feel like he should, do that with that being the only objective. He needs to think about his club career first. And if he's been told that, he's not going to play many games or he's not part of the plans, then that's when you can understand the situation and we'll come to terms that he has to move on and leave. But with Elliot, he's been showing great form for England, winning the Euros there. And I feel like he's a player that, he'll know the situation. And I saw an interview with him today during our sort of preseason preparations where he was quite honest and he said that he knows he's in a situation where he might not get a lot of games, but he'll see what happens in regards to next season. But he's also said that he might have to be a little bit selfish in his own current situation where if he's not going to get the game time that he wants, then he might have to move on because he's got aspirations to play in the World Cup and be selected for England and all that sort of thing. So I would like Elliot to stay for one more season and then after next season, he can move on because I feel like selling Chiesa and Elliot just to raise funds for the sake of raising funds makes no sense. We're weakening our squad by letting go of these attackers. So for me, they have to stay. If one of them has to leave, that's the maximum situation. Both can't leave. One of them has to stay, in my opinion. If we sell both, we're gonna have to get two attackers in. It's as simple as that because we'll be short in numbers, and I don't feel like even if you have Isak and Ekitike, that's not sufficient. Cover for the left wing. It's not sufficient cover for the right wing because you've let go of Diaz, who's predominantly left winger. Darwin's would have been our attacking option there, and Chiesa would have been the player that covers right wing and left wing. So it's very important that we make sure we don't start the season with less numbers just for the sakes of making money or balancing the books. We're going to balance the books in some shape or form because there's a lot of outgoings going on right now. We might not match it completely to the number of sort of incomings that are taking place this window, but it'll certainly be close enough or uh, good of a return that it helps us, you know, not have any issues with PSR or anything like that. And I feel like Liverpool have been run very well over the years. We've not spent too much money in previous windows, so I do expect us to um, be in good shape in terms of meeting all those financial regulations. So if it is where Ekitike has to be a backup player on paper, then so be it. But I feel like there's formations where he can definitely uh, form a great partnership with Isak in the team, and he might have to play slightly out of position at times, but it won't be completely done. It'll just be where he'll have more freedom in that role. Like if he played on the left side of our attack, I think he'll have more freedom to play. So let's see. I would like this kind of formation to be played because I feel like it suits everyone in the team. Wirtz might be expected to play a little bit deeper than normal, but he'll have that free role to kind of come in here, and then these guys can kind of form a double pivot to an extent. So that way, you've got a quartet. Look at that. You've got a quartet of Wirtz, Salah, Isak, and Ekitike. Now, that's the kind of stuff uh, that dreams are made of, aren't they? So yeah, this could be the formation. It's very attack minded, but feel like it's got everything that you need. It might not. It might have less balance than normal, but hey, we're trying to rule the world, so why not? So I think in a formation where you've got a front three, Ekitike can play on the left side, but I can also see him playing in a sort of a two-man strike force and forming a good partnership with Isak, where he ends up being a striker that drops a little bit deeper and allows Isak to be the front runner and playing on the shoulder and exploiting the spaces in behind the defense. So I feel like it could work. But yeah, feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you guys think. Um, but yeah, I'm excited about this prospect. I really am. Um, and I'll be shameless to say, if Isak joins Liverpool, yeah, we're going for all of the titles without a shadow of a doubt. Um, but look, we'll see because it's still very sort of preliminary stages right now. It feels a little bit more because it appears that the player has voiced his frustration, and that's literally half of the work done there. Now it's between the clubs to negotiate a deal, and I feel like we can get something down the line. So let's see. Hopefully, we'll get some sort of update or feedback in regards to a potential bid coming in. Um, but before we move on, let's quickly speak about Newcastle. Their fans have been quite shameless in the past week or so, uh, which is ironic because at one point they thought they were going to have both Ekitike and Isak in their team, but it looks like tables have turned and Liverpool could end up with both strikers in the end. Um, and they've been having a very tough summer. They've been rejected left, right, and center. So the money that's going to come from the Isak deal will definitely help them in the long term. It will solve all of their PSR issues for the next 5 years, and I feel like it will put the club in a good position going forward. And there's one legend that's pretty much, agrees with my sentiment there, and that is Alan Shearer. So he's actually spoken about the Isak situation, and in quotes, he said, "Isak has been brilliant for Newcastle, helped us achieve our dream of winning a trophy. If someone's prepared to pay what they want, you have to say thank you and build for the future." So, mature way of looking at things from a legend there. But some fans are not taking the news uh, very well at all. One fan, I'm sure if you've seen. If not, I'll retweet on my social media, and you guys can feel free to check out after the show. Um, One fan went on Talksport and was pretty much crying his eyes out on the call, screaming and shouting, saying, Newcastle don't need their money. Jamie O'Hara and Gabby Ogbonoho were just not helping situations by, poking the bear and making him more frustrated as he continued speaking. But look, Newcastle fans can feel grieved or frustrated or angry or whatnot. All I know is Liverpool are moving like a big club right now. We've got East Ekitike through the door. Uh, and look, just like our CEO, Billy Hogan, said today, this is one of the biggest clubs in the world. We want to make sure that we are behaving like one. That is music to our ears. We've not heard that kind of tone from the club before. Finally, it's happened. And it also looks like John Henry has welcomed. He's Honestly, he's acting like he's acting like a sheik right now. Look at the picture. That is John Henry right now. And look, I'm loving this new energy from him. So fingers crossed, we can get this deal over the line. I'm expecting to hear more news in the coming days. So buckle up. It doesn't look like we're stopping anytime soon. Now, before we move on, I'm just going through some of the comments here. Let's see. Kieran, big up Kieran says, I went to the parade as well. Were you near the station that was closed for a few hours? There were thousands of outside waiting to get in. So yeah, so once the parade had finished, I made my way back to the station, and yeah, I was there for hours. And the whole incident that occurred with the car trying to run people over. Um, I think I was minutes or not minutes, but I feel like it occurred after I arrived at the station. So that led to, no one being allowed in the station. There was ambulances, trying to get through. It was absolute chaos. So yeah, great day in terms of, seeing other Liverpool fans and everyone in such good spirit and so friendly and loving towards each other. Uh, yeah, unfortunately, it got ruined by an isolated incident, and yeah, the trip back home was a bit of a mental one to say the least. So once we win more trophies this season, I feel I'll be better. I'll be better prepared this time. I'll probably rent out some accommodation and not travel in the morning and leave on the same day as well, because yeah, that ended up being absolutely chaos. But look, you want to be part of these experiences. You want to be part of these special moments of the club. So yeah, I don't regret going there. I thought it was a great day, and it was good to see a lot of people there as well. So yeah, hopefully we can make that into more of a regular occurrence on an annual basis. Hopefully next year, we'll be celebrating more than one trophy. That would be the icing on top. So yeah, fingers crossed we can make that happen. Uh, Tafsir, big up Tafsir says, no Vaseline been used by Liverpool. It's going to get messy for the rivals. Like Ice Cube said, no Vaseline. Yeah, that's one of the best diss tracks in hip hop history there. So yeah, I definitely know the track there. But yeah, it looks like ain't no Vaseline. We're not playing any games right now. So yeah, it's it's big energy right now for sure. Hamza says, where's Ekatike going to play? So obviously, I just presented the formations there. It depends on what Arne Slot sees, because we played 4-2-3-1 last year, or at times, we had different. This is the thing about Arne Slot. We don't play static formation, which I love about his approach, because we change our shape during games based on what is presented in front of us. So that's going to happen a lot. So the key to doing that is making sure that you have players that are multifunctional, they're versatile, and they're able to adapt to new positions or new sort of jobs or tasks, within the field. And I feel like we're slowly having that kind of squad now where Verts can play in different roles, Frimpong can play in different roles. Perkins, is a left back, but he can play on the overlap or in the underlap as well. Like, he brings that variation. So we've got a lot of ammunition in our team, and that's the scary thought for our rivals, because we're not going to be like a Jurgen Klopp team. I'm not saying that in a disrespectful manner. When it came to Jurgen Klopp teams, we were predictable in terms of our setup, but you couldn't stop us. We were, that formidable in our approach. Whereas Slot, you're trying to second guess him tactically, but when you're on the pitch, it's a different story. So for me, you know, that's what's really exciting me next season. I'm not even sure what formation we'll play. I can envision us playing different formation, different systems as the team as the season goes on. And the ones that I've just presented, I'm sure we'll play those systems or those sort of formations at some point next season. So it's an exciting prospect nonetheless. But if Liverpool play the front three, Ekitike could play on the left side quite easily, in my opinion. Uh, he'll have to take some time to adapt to the role, but I don't see him being an out and out winger. And also, I've not even made this as a point today with the imminent sale of Diaz. Diaz is probably the only player in our team that I would regard as an out and out winger, like an old school winger, like back in the day when you have your 4-4-2 formations. Your winger is literally just touching that byline. Gakpo, he is a winger as well, but Gakpo can easily play as an inside forward. He can even play as a striker, so he has a bit more to his game. Whereas I feel like Diaz is more direct. When he was playing up top, that's what done him really well yesterday because of his direct approach. He was able to attack, in between the lines and go through on goal and try and score in one-on-one situations. That's what he brought to the table for us. With Gakpo, he can come a bit more inside. Salah, of course, in his younger days was an out-and-out winger, but now, with age, he's adapted his style of play a little bit. He's become more of a playmaker now, but he likes to drift more inside. He doesn't really go on the byline and attack his fullback or takes them one-on-one situations. He's pretty much very efficient on the ball now. When he's got the ball, he's either trying to shoot or he's trying to lay it off to someone else. So you've got more of a calculated player there who likes to play a bit more inside than not. So with Diaz, potentially departing now, we don't really need an out and out winger that kind of profile. With Ekatike, if he's playing on the left side of a front three, he's playing as an inside forward, not as an out and out winger. And I feel like he can do a good job there. And if we're playing with two strikers, I feel like he can play um as the one that drops deep because if you watch football back in the day when you had two strikers you wouldn't have both of them attacking the goal at the same time. One will drop deep, one will be a bit more forward, and I feel like Ekatike will be the one that drops deep and Isak's the one that is just in front of him. But another thing I mentioned in my last show but I haven't mentioned it here is the fact that this could be a proposition as well. So let me try and find the right formation. So we predominantly play 4-2-3-1 formation, right? So um, what we can do, let's remove both of these guys. One thing that I don't think has been mentioned by many people is that Ekitike could play in a number 10 role in our team. Slightly, out of the box. And the only reason I'm saying is because his way of playing, he's fantastic when it comes to link up play. So I feel like it's predominantly like playing a 4-4-2, but I feel like with him playing in that kind of role, has a bit more space there, and it also allows these two guys to interchange. So Verts can drift inside, Ekitike can play in a more central area, and then he can be effective because of his positional sense, where he can lay off the ball to other players around him, and he can also score from distance as well. So I think Ekitike and Isak are very special profiles. I feel like they can play with each other, not like for like directly in terms of as two strikers going up, but if you've got the right players around him, which I feel like we've got a good balance in our team, I think it can work. So whether he plays as a striker, whether he plays as a number 10 or he plays on the left, I feel like he can do all three roles based on the shape of our team. So for me, it can definitely happen. That's my way of looking at it. Um, Maya says, Ozzy, do you think our team is looking stronger than the team that won the Premier League with 99 points? Remember that team had Salah, Firmino, Mane, but this team will have Salah, Verts, and Isak. Only time will tell. But that team right there was a very special team. We had everything in our locker, and I think our front three were unstoppable that season. But I feel like with this team, we've got more strength in depth, where we're not over reliant on Salah or if we had like a Mane, we're not over reliant on those players. We've got good enough cover for those players, and I feel like with our coach as well, we're able to adapt to different systems and formations as well. So last year, I feel like we were a bit more slower in terms of how we played in terms of the tempo. I think that's going to change this year with the players that we've signed. I see us playing a bit more on the front foot at the start of games. That was my criticism, last year, where I feel like the opening 10, 15 minutes were quite slow, very slow to begin with. This year, I think we're going to be different. We're going to be very, very aggressive as soon as the opening minute begins. So for me, exciting prospect. Whether it matches, the team with 99 points remains to be seen. But this team, what it looks like right now, it's almost a complete squad. I'm literally seeing it in that way. So I think it has a potential to overtake many teams. So let's see what happens. Other comment says, where are These two Newcastle fans that told you a few streams ago we have zero chance of signing Isak, they've gone quiet. Let's see. Let's see if they reappear. I did tell them, you have to come back and let us know what you think in terms of what transpires. But yeah, I don't know if they'll be here anytime soon. Um, Sam Clark, he says, I can hear them crying in the time. Alexander said he wants to sign one chat with Arne Slot, and he says, sound F off Jordan's, I'm a cop right now. Yeah, you've got a song written up there. I'm liking it. So yeah, you never know if we can start singing that during match as well. So big up for your comment there. Other comeback, fire emojis. Yeah, we're liking that little line there. Yeah. So big up yourself, Sam. Roger Penty said, with all these ballers getting signed, what's your expectation for the season? Do you think it could be a record-breaking season? If Isak, Gehi, and let's say we get Malik for fun, because I feel like one of Chiesa or Elliot will leave. So I feel like we should, on paper, sign another attacker. We're cooking. Honestly, we are cooking. With Ekatike there, Isak there, Gates to solidify the midfield, the defense, sorry. I'm hoping as well Konate signs a new contract because that will feel like a new signing itself. Um, we're going for the quad. Honestly, I was shamelessly say if we get Isak, you can't help but not speak about that energy. Real fans are already telling us that, oh, you must win this thing. I don't want to hear nothing from Real fans. Internally, amongst us Liverpool fans, we've got to have that confidence. We have to. We can't, build such a special squad there and not have that confidence. So, no need to be modest in that sort of situation. We're going for all of the titles, honestly. And I feel like we have a very strong chance because I feel like we've got the right balance and the right layers within our squad. It's not just the first 11 that's formidable. It's pretty much the squad is fixing up to look like that right now as well. So, yeah, very, very exciting prospect for us going forward. Uh, Psychedelic Night, big up yourself, it's exciting. So yeah, big up yourself. I think that's probably in reference to my formations. So big up yourself. Adam, big up Adam, he says, are you confident Liverpool will sign Isak? A few days ago, I wasn't as confident because I just felt like Newcastle weren't willing to sell. But I did say before as well, if Isak hands in a transfer request or makes it very clear that he's frustrated and wants to leave the club, that's when we can see things develop, and that's what's happened today. So now I feel more confident. I really do because I don't think the move to Al Hilal appeals to him as much, even though he'll be, receiving a crazy amount of money. But I don't think that's a deal that he probably wants at this stage of his career. It would only if that happened, it's only because Newcastle have refused to negotiate with Liverpool, and he's had no choice but to join Al Hilal. Kind of similar situation to Osimhen, where last year he wasn't really allowed to speak to Premier League teams, or they were pricing out any deals to be done. So in the end, he ended up joining Galatasaray on loan because that was the only offer available. The Turkish league has an extra week to other European teams, so that ended up being the only option for him, which he ended up taking. And now it looks like he's moving there permanently. So for me, yeah, if we get Isak, honestly, we will be unstoppable, unplayable. Even I'm picturing the way we're playing right now with Isak in the team. Yeah, it's stuff where you only dream about. It's stuff where you buy players on PlayStation and you play, a dream team that never becomes a reality. It's going to be a reality for us Liverpool fans. So yeah, it's very exciting. If we sign Isak, I'll say it straight. I'm going to be shameless for the remainder of the window, and when the season starts as well. I will be arrogant. I'm quite a chilled, laid back person, but sometimes you got to show that energy when your team's doing so well. So yeah, let's see what kind of side of Aussie you see later on in the season. Adams asks, do you think Liverpool can buy Isak before they sell Diaz, or they have to sell Diaz first? I think we can buy Isak first because we have the funds. That's been quite clear. We've got the finances to engineer those moves. But in regards to Diaz, which I'll speak about very shortly, um, that deal looks like it could be quite imminent as well because they have been negotiating at quite quite in length right now. So so we can just speak about it now, actually. So with Diaz, the current sort of theme or the current sort of rumor that we're hearing is that um, Bayern are set to improve their offer by offering 80 million euros, which in pounds is roughly 70 million pounds. Now, I've said it quite a few times. I think Liverpool will be open to concluding a deal if someone places a bid of 70 million plus. So this is the minimum that Liverpool would accept. And I think it's come to a point where the player has voiced his frustration. He's not happy with the club's stance of not offering him a new contract. He wants to move on. So therefore, if we're getting a offer that's relatively close to our valuation, then it will happen. So I don't think we're relying on that Diaz money, but we know it's coming. If that makes sense, like when you're working, end of the month, you're going to get a paycheck, right? So it's kind of like that kind of feeling where that money is going to come. It's not. It's almost guaranteed money that's coming in, but you're rest assured it is going to come at some form. So I feel like the Diaz deal would definitely help sort of pay off the installments for this Isak deal. But I feel like we can do that before that even happens. So I feel like we're in a good position to get that deal done first, and then conclude the Diaz deal. I think the Diaz deal is based on what happens with Bayern. How quick are they to offer us the money that we want? If they're able to offer it tomorrow and we're happy, then that negotiation, those talks are going to escalate, and Diaz will be a Bayern Munich player before the end of the week. That's the kind of speed you expect it to happen. So we'll wait and see. But I don't think we are over reliant on that sale. That sale, whenever it happens with Diaz or Nunes or any other players, that will come in to balance the books. I feel like we've got enough in the stash to just buy whoever we want, and then we kind of balance it out towards the latter end of the season. Because previously we've had to sell players to buy players. We've not done that. That's not a philosophy right now. So we're in a different kind of position where we have the funds we haven't spent over the last 2 3 years, so we're able to maneuver and buy the players we want first, and then slowly sell on the players um, towards the latter stage of the window. So it's working. Um, and I think that will be the way we will finish off this window in the next few weeks. Ozen come out says, Ozzy, have you booked your hotel in Liverpool next May? I might have to do it. I'm not gonna lie. That might be cocky. If we get Isak, I'm probably booking a table, a hotel straight away. Um, the only thing is that I'll probably have to book 2 dates because I'm going to have the Premier League in mind until the end of the Premier League, but also the Champions League. Because if we were in the Champions League final, we're probably going to do a parade with both titles, together. I'm definitely getting ahead of myself, but I'm trying to forecast the future. So I'll probably book a hotel and get 2 days booked, and make sure I've got a cancellation thing as well. Where if I know we're in the Champions League final, then cancel the the Premier League date one, and then if we're winning the double or maybe even more, if we've added the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup to the mix as well, fingers crossed, we can make that happen. But if we've got multiple trophies, then it'll probably happen, after the Champions League. So yeah, I'll be booking 2 days. If we get Isak, yeah, I'm definitely doing that. I'm shameless to say that out loud as well. I'll probably end up doing that very, very soon. Uh, Mike says, Aussie looks like Konate will sign a new contract. Do you think we still sign Gay? Oh, we have to sign Gay, 100%. Signing Konate just secures the future going forward, but we still have a space in our defense. We've only got three recognized defenders. We've got Van Dijk, Konate, and we've got Joe Gomez. Now we know Joe Gomez, good player, but unreliable when it comes to availability. So we have to sign a centre back. I'd even go for a step further and say we probably should have two centre backs coming in through the door. That way you have five centre backs, and Joe Gomez could be listed as the fifth choice. But he will come in whenever needed, or if we need a bit more of an experienced head, he's that guy that comes in. In an ideal, I'd want it to be Van Dijk, Konate, Gay, a young profile, like an up and coming centre back. So we've been linked to an Italian defender from Parma called Leone, someone like that, or and Nato would have been ideal, but it looks like he's off to Chelsea. But a young profile like that, who will learn his trade and come through the ranks and eventually become a first team player in years to come whenever certain players leave. And then you've got Joe Gomez, your fifth choice, but as fifth choice, he doesn't just cover centre back. he covers left back and right back as well. So that would be how I would maneuver. I would get two centre backs in, but as it stands, it probably looks like we're going to get one. And if that is the case, I think Mark Gay is definitely the one that we need to get. He ticks all the boxes. He's experienced. He's very, very solid as a defender. He might not be easy on the eye in terms of, his passing, but I actually feel like his passing is very good. He's probably better passing than Konate, and I'll say that out loud. So he brings experience. He's of course he's English, so he ticks the homegrown quota uh, requirement as well. 24 years of age, so very young. Good profile in terms of his characteristics. He's a leader. He's been Palace captain for the last 2 3 years. Uh, Both footed, can play as a left side centre back, can play as a right sided centre back, can play in the back three and the back four. So I feel like he'd be the perfect signing for us. Shouldn't cost too much. I'd say around 35, 40 million should seal the deal. So let's see. We have been in talks with Palace. I think the valuation is something that they haven't come to terms with right now, but hopefully that'll happen in due course. And then we've got Ratchet Painting. Said Diaz is a dangerous player if he stays. What kind of role can he play next season? If he stays, it'll be the same role that he played last season, where he'll be an option for us as a striker, but also predominantly as a left winger. And if needed, can even play on the right wing as well. So I don't doubt Diaz's quality, but I'm just trying to understand his situation because I get it. He's frustrated. He's not had a pay rise since he joined the club. He's not going to be given any new terms or a new contract going forward. So he has to look out for himself, and I get it. But I've just not liked the little comments he's made. Where he said that he's had open discussions with other clubs, and he's like, "We'll see." Like, you're not supposed to say those kind of comments out loud because it feels like it's a plea to let people know that I'm available. Come get me. So I didn't really like that kind of tone. I didn't really like that way of communication that he presented in that press conference. So look, if he goes, it is what it is. But I feel like Liverpool have addressed the squad very well, and I feel like we will have adequate players to replace Diaz in the squad. So we'll see what happens. Red Bear, big up Red Bear says Kirkes, Ping Pong, in terms of what they bring to the table. So yeah, I'm excited about what they bring to us. Two attack-minded fullbacks. But with Frimpong, for example, it doesn't matter if he plays right back, right mid, right wing, plays the same way. So he's forward thinking. You've seen him in the last couple of, we played against Preston, but we also played against Stoke City behind closed doors. And just based on the highlights I saw in that last fixture, his running was unbelievable. And I feel like he's a player that could cover for Salah if he goes on to play at AFCON in January, because he brings a different dynamic. He's raw in terms of his pace, but he's got good crossing ability. He can shoot as well, but he can do that right back. So he brings us, multifunctional ability on that right hand flank, and I feel like he's going to control that flank. In terms of Kirkes, he's a special profile. I actually watched the interview earlier today where it's an old clip that I've seen quite a few times circling on social media, where he's said his best sort of attribute as a left back is that he likes to attack inside. So he likes to underlap rather than overlap. But we've seen it for Bournemouth last season. He's fantastic on the overlap as well. So he brings you variation. He's not limited. And I'm not here to throw shade, but with Robertson, overlapping, fantastic. Unbeatable at times as well, especially in the beginning parts of his Liverpool career. But when he underlaps, when he's a bit more inside, he's not, you know, very decisive in his decision making. Sometimes he doesn't know if he should shoot or cross, and with shooting, it's definitely been below par. So that's not his comfort zone. Whereas Kirkes, both areas of the pitch is comfortable for him, and I feel like he'll be very effective for us going forward. So those two players, I'm very excited to see how they perform together. They seem like they've already formed a good friendship off the field. So yeah, positive signs going forward. Ozan Kabak says, I have faith in Amara Nallo and Lucas Stevenson. Not sure about on those two players, to be fair. Nallo I've seen here and there. I didn't like Nallo's performance during the season. I think it was against Plymouth, wasn't it? And he wasn't very I think he got sent off, didn't he, in the end? Um, Stevenson, I've not seen much of him, so I'll see, what kind of play he is during pre-season. But yeah, if we need them, we'll bring them on board. But right now, not an option for me. Man said we've got Verts and Ekitike and maybe soon Isak. Which one of them has the most natural talent for me? It's Verts. In terms of natural ability, I will agree with you. I think it's Verts because some of the things he does, I don't feel like it's trained. Of course, when you play football, repetition is the key. The more you practice, the more you play, the better you get, the better you kind of polish up your skills. But there's some things that he does where I feel like it's natural and that can't be taught. So that's the beauty of having a number 10 in your team. They're able to play football in such a magical way that it makes the game look very easy. They play in a very elegant manner, and he's a very silky footballer. So that's what excites me the most. But Ekitike and Isak, these are strikers that have worked hard to become real finishers because Isak's not a natural born finisher. We've seen him, in his younger days when he was at Real Sociedad and Dortmund as well. Before that, he was quite raw. He wasn't a complete finisher, but with time and development and experience, he's able to muster up all those skills or all those sort of valuable lessons he's had over the years. And now he's pretty much a polished up player. He's established now, and he's one of the most lethal strikers in world football. So Ekitike, same boat. He's just probably one level behind. He's close to achieving that level. He has the trajectory to achieve big things in the game. So yeah, we are very fortunate, very lucky to have Ekitike in our team, and hopefully, Isak completes the deal as well. So yeah, fingers crossed, Liverpool can make that happen. Final rumor we kind of touched on it a little bit yesterday, and that is regarding Ibrahima Konaté. Now, as it appears, or as it stands, I should say, it looks like he has been offered a new contract, and according to rumors online, he's been offered roughly around 180K uh, per week plus bonuses, and the deal is roughly for 5 years. And the big question: what will happen? Will he accept or reject? I think it's a good offer, but I think he'll probably want a bit more in terms of the base salary because I think he'll look at players around his age group or players that are sort of on his level right now, like a Saliba. I'm going to use Saliba as the benchmark right now in terms of the Premier League, and he earns around 200K. So I think that's the kind of figure he wants. So it's probably 200K plus bonuses that I think will get able to sign. Based on what you see on social media, on the Liverpool channel, he doesn't seem to be like a player that's not happy. He's very, joyful. He seems like, he's enjoying his time as a Liverpool player. I think he just wants to get what he's worth, and rightly so. He's worth more than 70,000 a week. He's showcased his ability over the years. Last year, he actually played more games than he has in previous seasons. So hopefully, that's those injury issues that he's had. That's put to one side going forward. So I feel like we've got a very very special player. I feel like he's one of the best centre backs in Europe. So why not, reward him and give him what he deserves? So if it's 180, if it's 200 a week, if that's what he wants, then I think we should give it to him. So what's my prediction? I don't know. It's very up and down. I really want him to say, but I feel like the longer it's left that he doesn't sign the contract, then I feel like he's not going to stay. So after this window, if he hasn't signed the contract, then I would go the percentage of 60 to 40 that he leaves next season. But hopefully I'm wrong. I want him to sign without a shadow of a doubt. Because I feel like he will have a long-term future at the club. I think he'll be a great player to have in the squad once Van Dijk decides to leave in the future. And I feel like whoever plays alongside him should be able to form a formidable partnership as well because he's a fantastic right-sided centre back. And I feel like there's not that many players in world football that can replace Konate in terms of attributes and what he brings to the field. So yeah, I really hope we can make that happen. Hopefully, we'll get some sort of developments or some positive news regarding Konate in the coming weeks. But right now, it's up in the air. It's 50-50. Right now, I probably felt last week it was more towards Real Madrid because that's the noise we were getting that Real Madrid are going to do their best to try and seal a contract with him for next summer. But they've always been some discussion that they might want to try and get a deal right now. So for me, last week I was probably 60-40 that he'd leave. Now I'm a bit more 50-50 because I've heard that we've offered him a contract. So fingers crossed, it meets his requirements and he's happy to sign on the dotted line. So hopefully we'll get some news in due course. Um, let's go through some of the comments before we close the show. Um, there we go. Roger Payne said, "What do you think will happen with Chiesa? I'm seeing mixed messages online. I don't want to sound like I'm on the fence, but I'm kind of 50-50 as well because I'm looking at the squad and I feel like he needs to stay. I feel like he's definitely going to provide cover for a number of our positions. But then I'm also looking at last season where, especially last 2-3 months, he was available, but Arne Slot didn't really use him much. And maybe he feels that he's not the adequate quality to play in the Premier League for Liverpool. So therefore, it looks like maybe he could be moved on. Um, I would like him to stay, but if you had to, put me in a spot and ask what will happen with him, I think he'll be sold. But then I think Elliot has to stay as well. It can't be Elliot and Chiesa leaving because we're then short in terms of attacking backup players in our squad. Um, if he was to go, the rumor was a few days ago that Malik Fofana would come in and be his replacement. I'm all for that because Chiesa, of course, technically and what he's done over the years, is a better player. But Malik Fofana is a dynamic player who will bring a lot of pace and you know can play multiple positions, can play left wing, can play right wing. So for me, he would be a good replacement, and he wouldn't cost as much as we would envision. I think because of Leon's financial situation, we probably gave him around 20 odd million. So that's probably how much we'd roughly get for Chiesa. So financially, you've got a like for like replacement there, but you've got a player more like Fofana who's got huge potential to really um, deliver and improve um, as the years go on. So let's see. I would like him to stay, but I'm not sure. I'm really not because you'd expect him to leave because he's been left out of the squad. But also hasn't said anything about Chiesa, unlike Eddie Howe, who's pretty much told us that Isak's not happy. So let's see. As it stands, I feel like he might be on the verge of leaving. And that's why he hasn't traveled the squad. But only time will tell. I'm sure we'll get some clarification in due course. Ozzy Kabak said Chiesa's probably leaving. Yeah, I think you're probably right there. Kieran said we should pay what he's worth. I definitely agree with you that he's one of the best in Europe. Signing him up is really important because we can still get another season out of him. 100%. His profile, to his age, and his experience that he's gained being at Liverpool. You can't go and find a like for like replacement like that. You'll have to find someone that's a younger version or young and up and coming, or you go for someone that's a bit more experienced. I feel like Konate is at a stage of his career where he can actually go on to another level. Yeah, I feel like and then he can solidify himself as one of the best defenders in world football. That's the kind of quality he has, in my opinion. So yeah, I really hope we get a deal done soon. But yeah, only time will tell. Uncle Ross TV, I said you still alive, bro. I am. I'm still live and kicking right now, but I will be closing the show very shortly. But big up for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. Mazzy says, Ozzy, with the players we've signed, which one do you think will make the biggest impact? I'm not going to include Isak in that conversation because he's not officially a Liverpool player yet. That's a great question. I think it'll be Florian Wirtz. I think he's gonna have the biggest impact. I'm expecting Ekitike to bang in the goals as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think some fans are really underestimating the signing of Florian Wirtz. I don't know why. It's maybe because it's Liverpool and people are just hoping he fails because he's our record signing. But that kid is way above everyone else in world football. He is the best number 10 out there. I'm not saying I agree with the Liverpool player. I said it previously, for time ago. Even when he was linked to the Man City player, I was thinking if Man City game, they've got one of the best number 10s in the world. So it's not just new energy because he's a Liverpool player. It's widely renowned that he's one of the best number 10s currently. So I would go with Florian Wirtz. I think he'll have the biggest impact in our team. Well, McFreeman, big up your choice. The disrespect that Curtis gets is awful, to be honest. Yeah, it's a weird one with Curtis. I'm not sure why that is the case. Um, on this channel, in terms of how I speak about Curtis Jones, I'm speaking quite positively about him. I feel like he's a great player to have in our squad. The thing I like about Curtis Jones is that he's really improved his defensive side of his game. Because remember, when he came through the ranks, he was an attack-minded player, played as a number 10, played on the left side occasionally, scored a lot of goals. Some may say he was a touch arrogant because he was so much sort of in confidence in terms of his ability. But I think as he's grown, in the team, he's matured. He's um, become more of a team player. And I like him when he plays in that double pivot role. I know a lot of fans don't, but I like him in that role because he provides control. His ball retention is fantastic. He picks out the right passes at the right time. He can kind of hold the ball a little bit longer than usual, but I feel like he's doing it in order to gain possession and not give the ball away. So that's a trait that Arne Slot, lives by to the T. So, if that's embodied by your coach, you're going to present that yourself on the pitch as well. And he can play as a number 10. It could be a good option there for us. Can play left side if we really need to, have someone cover that area. Played right back a couple of times as well. So versatile. Seems like a good lad, scouser. So, that helps, embodying the values of the club and the city. I think he's a good player. I'm not sure what it is in terms of disrespect. He's never complained about not being in the game in the team week in, week out. He's always known that he'll get his chance and whenever called upon, he'll give his all. That's what you need in your squad. You need those type of players. You can't have, elite quality from position number 1 to 25 in your squad. Everyone's got to have you've got to have a good balance. Everyone knows their role and they know whenever they're called upon, they're going to try and do their best and match the capabilities of other players around them. So yeah, I'm not one of them. But everyone's entitled to their opinion, I guess. Ratchet Painting says Grealish, Rice, Enzo, Caicedo, and Verts all have cost over 100 million. How much should we pay for Isak? In terms of Isak, I think 100, should seal the deal, to be fair. Newcastle want 150, which is just ridiculous. And I think they're just taking a mix now. But I think 120, 125 should be enough because the record I believe is 115, and that was the Caicedo deal, if I'm not wrong there. So I feel like 120, to beat the record there, it's a statement itself. Us to match or beat the record of 120 million pounds uh, should be enough to seal that contract there or seal that move there. So yeah, I'd say between 120 to 130. I think that should be enough to get Isak over to Anfield. Hmm, excuse me. Bo says Allison, Bradley, Ibu, Virgil, Kirkes, Ryan, McAllister, Vets, Gakpo, Ekatike, Salah for the Palace game. When is the Palace game? It's in 2, 3 weeks' time, isn't it? So look, I'm gonna be shameless. I hope we sign Isak before then, so he gets inside your 11. So 10th of August, not that far away. Um, so yeah, not too long ago. So yeah, in terms of your lineup, let's just put Isak to one side because that deal I don't think will be concluded so soon. Even if we make an offer, I think it will, drag on a little bit just because of the magnitude of the transfer. But hopefully Liverpool can get that done in due course. In terms of your formation, I would put in Kirkes instead of Bradley. Um, and that's about it. I would put Kirkes instead of Bradley, but that's just my opinion there. Of course, the closer we get to the time, I'll do match previews and watch alongs during the course of the season. So yeah, feel free to get involved. I also do match reaction shows. So with my match reaction shows, it's a calling show. So fans, viewers, everyone is welcome to come on. I normally pin a link in the live chat, so um, I'll give you my review, my overview of the match, and then you are welcome to come on and have your say. So, yeah, if that's something you'd want to do in the course of next season, yeah, the platform is there for everyone to join. Mazdi, Big Up Mazdi says, if we sign Isak, I think we'll pay around 110 plus 20 of add-ons, but we can't go over 140. That'd be too much. Yeah, I agree. I think 130 is the max. I don't think we should go over 140. That's a bit of a crazy amount to pay. So no. Um, I think 120, 130. That's the range that should get Isak over the line. Eddie's Football Waffle. Big up yourself, Eddie. He says, greetings, Aussie. You guys are moving man if you get Isak as well. FFS, dropping a like. Big up Eddie's Football Waffle. Appreciate you commenting. And guys, please support Eddie's Football Waffle and subscribe to his channel. He's a United fan, but he's a football fan first. You know, he's always speaks, you know, in a logical manner. Doesn't speak in a biased point of view. And is a good fan of the channel. So please show your support and subscribe to his channel. Um, Bob Mark says, "Do you think apart apart of Isak for Ekitike does well, he could take my spot? So instead, ask for the move now instead of next year." I don't think so. I feel like with these strikers, especially Isak, you know, he's got credit in the bank where he's been banging the goals for the last 2 3 years. He's probably thinking this Liverpool project right now is the most exciting project in world football. They've just signed Ekitike, but he's not going to think, "Oh, that's my rival right there." He wants to be part of that mix. They're probably thinking they've got Verts, Frimpong, Kirkes, like two fullbacks that are going to attack down that flank and whipping crosses. Then you got Florian Verts threading magical through balls to the striker. That's heaven for any striker. So Isak's wetting his lips, rubbing his hands, thinking of that prospect, thinking, you know what? If I'm part of that team, I'm cooking. I'm banging in goals left, right, and center. So I feel like he would be, you know, excited and really, really, upbeat about joining the potential sort of move to Liverpool because it's the most exciting project in world football right now. And, it's just not, we're not just buying our success away like fans are telling us, we've won trophies for us to, have the finances to accommodate these signings here. But I feel like Isak's looking at this thinking this is a team that's going to be around for a long time. They're going to challenge for major honors for a long time. And it's not just domestically, it's, you know, on a European level as well. So Liverpool seems to be the place to be right now with the level of signings we're making, the way we're moving forward. So that's why I feel like, even with Ekatike through, I think he'll have that touch of arrogance to be like, you know what? I'm gonna go in there and show everyone that I'm the guy. I don't think Ekitike, will pose him that kind of threat because if Isak walks through the door, I think he has enough credit to be the number one star. And Ekitike has got to prove his worth to either dislodge him or you play him in the same team, like I showed earlier on. So if you missed it, watch the replay. I presented different formations that I can see both Isak and Ekitike playing together. Whether it's a two-man attack or it's a three-man attack, it can definitely work in my opinion. So yeah, it's an exciting prospect nonetheless. So hopefully Isak does end up becoming a Liverpool player. Ratchet Painting says, if we sign Isak, how many goals do you think he could get for LFC next season? I feel like I'm just gonna give out wild numbers out there. I think he could score a bucket load of goals. He scored about 20 for Newcastle, right? In the league. I'm saying he's gonna touch 30 goals next season in the league. And then, outside, make up whatever number, another 10. So 40 goals. I don't think that's crazy. Like that sounds like I'm being very unrealistic. I don't think that's crazy. I think that's quite realistic. So 40 goals in all competitions, plus assists, 10 assists as well, 50 GA. That's what I'm going for. So yeah, that should be his output. But once he comes, we'll see what happens going forward. And he says, thanks for the plug, Ozzy. Yeah, football ban first, especially when United are embarrassing the fan base half the time, bro. Yeah, you're one of the sensible ones, to be fair. yeah, some of the stuff I see United fans say, it makes me chuckle, but delusion is a thing. But you're not one of them, so yeah, big up yourself as always. Um, Boss says, why wasn't Rio and Yoni a part of the training today? Feels it's a little bit disrespectful to the youngsters that we have played well. When Diaz and Nunes are going to leave anyway. I'm not sure. I didn't catch the training to yesterday. I know it was broadcasted live. I never got a chance to. Maybe they picked up a little knock, or maybe they didn't want to overtrain them, or maybe they had separate training sessions because they're part of the sort of the younger group. But I think rest assured they will be part of our preseason preparations. They will play. They might not start those games, but they will come off the bench and have minutes under the belt. So I think they'll get the opportunities during the Asian tour. Uh, but Mark says, I'm not even joking. I think he could get 35, 40. Yeah, I said that as well. I think 40 all comps and then add assist to that. I think another 10, 50 GA. That's how I'm seeing it. So, yeah, I don't think I'm being over the top there. I think it's realistic. If he's got 20 goals for Newcastle in the league, you can't tell me he can't get more at Liverpool. He's going to have Verts, Gakpo, Salah behind him. He's going to be spoiled for passes and through balls and having one-on-one shots. It's going to be another level, and he's a clinical finisher now. So yeah, the whole goals tally are going to be as high as they can be. To be fair, so yeah, I don't think it's unrealistic. Eddie's Football Waffle says, so which was your most favorable combo? Ekitike left wing, Isak up top, Salah right wing. I think the ones that I present, they all had their sort of pros and cons. I like the fact that Ekitike. I think the one that has the best balance is when we have a front three, because then you've got a double pivot, and then you've got enough bodies to cover the defense as well. But like Ekitike wouldn't be played as a direct left winger. I see him more of an inside forward, and I see Salah being an inside forward as well. So that way you've got uh, not Verts, sorry, Isak being the main guy. Let me see if I can present the formation. I think this was the one that I was quite strong with. So you have Gravenberch, McAllister in your double pivot, and then you've got Verts in your number 10 role, and then you've got Salah and Ekitike not as your wingers, more positioned as inside forwards, and then Isak being up top, playing on the defense line of the opposition and attacking from behind. So that is the one I feel like gives the right balance. So you end up having a quartet of Verts, Ekitike, Isak, and Salah, and they're all playing their right sides as well. So for me, this could work really, really well. So this is the one that I'm looking towards. A sort of it says 4-1-2-3, but it's been amended a little bit. But um, there's so many different variations and different shapes and systems that we can play that it can work well in any scenario. So I feel like we've got a good balance, a good mix of players in our attack. Bo says, how many goals and assists will Verts have this season? In all comps, I think I'll break it down. So in the league, I can easily see him getting 10 goals, 10 assists. And if you add European competition into it as well, let's say 20 goals altogether. I'm gonna go overboard. I'm gonna say 40. So I'm gonna say 20 goals and 15 assists in all comps. So 35 GA. Apparently, he got interviewed by Konate, and they asked him a question like that, but they blurred it out, so you didn't know what the answer was. But Konate's response was, "Oh, I like your energy," or something like that. So he must have given a weird, crazy tally. Um, but I like that because it shows his confidence as well. I feel like he can hit big numbers for us. I really do. Because he's playing for such a complete team. Um, so I'm saying 30, 35 GA for the season. That's the kind of tally I'm going for. Um, Bob says all those Salah passes to Nunes now to Isak, tears in my eyes, man. Listen, we're not gonna see 2 yard misses. We're not gonna see him hit the ball from close range over the bar. It's not gonna hit Rose or anything like that. We're going to see real finishes that hit the top bin or in the bottom corner. clinical finishes, that's what we're going to see with Isak. And I'm going to go say you'll see that with Ekatike as well whenever called upon. We've got two, players that are definite upgrade to Nunes and any other attackers that we have playing in that central role. So yeah, we're definitely in a great position there. Uh, Eddie's Football Waffle says Ekatike and Gakpo battling for inside left forward sounds feisty. I'm so envious. That's my vision right now. That's how I'm seeing it. So let's hope, you know, for everyone's sake that happens, because then of course rival fans will be concerned about that. Bob says I feel like if we get Isak, there's not much pressure on Verts. I mean, all pressure on Isak. Let's see if he can handle it. I think the beauty about the situation where I don't feel like there's one player that will get more pressure alongside anyone else. I think it'll be firstly, I don't think they'll feel the pressure collectively because it's Liverpool and our fan base will show them the support they need. Outside noise, outside noise. Rival fans will always say what they got to say. But internally, I think we'll just give them the platform to showcase themselves, express themselves on the pitch, and do the business. Whenever they're called upon. So rival fans will probably go for who's the most expensive player, which will end up probably being Isak. So he might get that pressure that he has to deliver, but I don't see it that way. I feel like they're all playing as a collective, and I feel like the transfer fees for me, aren't a big deal because the most important thing is not just spending money; it's about finding the right profile for your system or for your team, and all these players are fitting in very nicely as part of our puzzle. So I feel like they all bring their own qualities, their own strengths to the team, and I feel like it's just going to be gelled together, and you're going to see a very complete team next season. That's what I'm envisioning right now. So yeah, I'm beyond excited, in terms of what Liverpool are going to showcase next season. Um, the pressure might be more on Isak if he was to join, but if he doesn't sign, I don't want to jinx it, but it'll probably be on Verts because he's our record signing. Um, but he seems to be that kind of character where I think he'll thrive on that. And Frimpong's actually said that in an interview where he loves that kind of pressure or that challenge. So that's a characteristic of someone that's a real competitor or who's a genuine winner. So I love those type of players, and we've got one that's probably one of the best in world football right now. So yeah, very very positive. However you look at it. Bo says I think Rio should be part of the team this season. I think he should, but not like in the sort of heavy end. When I say heavy end, I don't want him to be like a second choice for left wing under Gakpo, for example. I want him to be slowly embedded to the first team where he's playing cup matches, and once we feel like he's ready for that next step up, that's when he's pretty much part of the next team. My vision of for Rio is that he plays the cup games, does really well, makes a few appearances toward the latter stage of next season, and then next season, as in 2026 to 2027, that's the season where he breaks through and he's part of the first team mix. He won't be regarded as a youth player that trains with the first team on occasions. He'll be part of that mix, part of that 25 or 27, however numbers there are at the time. So that's how I'm seeing it. That's how I'm trying to roadmap his career in my head. Because he's got the ability. I just feel like because of his age, you don't want to push someone so early right now. But I feel like his end product still needs polishing up, still needs refining. So once he's able to find that balance and improve his decision making in the final third, then I feel like that's when he's ready to step up and play for the first team. So, but look, he's a promising player, very very exciting to watch, and yeah, hopefully he does have an impact this season. Uh, Mane says Isak will get 25 goals in the Prem minimum, all competitions 40. As for Watts, he'll get 15 Prem goals and 10 assists in the Prem, all competitions 25 goals and 15 assists for Verts. Yeah, I think I said around 30 or 35 GA, I said, didn't I? So yeah, pretty much on the same ball mark there. Uh, Bo said the difference between Real Madrid, PSG, and Liverpool signing superstars is that Liverpool sign stars with good attitudes. Yep, it's not just players that are good players on the pitch. It's the whole package where they've got a different mentality. They've got a drive to succeed or a drive to become better and be part of a team. That's a dynamic that you want when you add players to your squad. We're not signing players with big egos. You might, I feel like with some players, confidence could be labeled as, arrogance or overconfidence, but sometimes it's just, belief that they're very, very good. They believe in themselves truly and they have confidence in their ability. So all the players that we signed, none of them come across as arrogant in my eyes. And I feel like they're a good mix in terms of similar age group. Probably similar sort of career journey as well, where they've had to work through the ranks to achieve where they are right now. So that's something the club does for 100%. They do that. They do their background search in terms of how they're off the field. What are their motives? How do they look after themselves and all that sort of stuff. Um, it's very key because you want to have the right players in your squad. You don't want to sign someone just because they're a good player, but they end up being a bit of a rotten egg and be disruptive and influenced by outside noise or outside activities and aren't driven when it comes to football. That has to be their sole focus. So Liverpool are, you know, on top when it comes to that aspect of the game where the recruitment is done very thoroughly, or should I say, the research is done very thoroughly in order for us to recruit those players. So for me, um, yeah, we're signing the right profiles, and it's very good to see. Ratchet Painting says, exciting times for all us LFC fans. Let's hope it will be a fantastic and memorable season. I really hope so. Let's hope that is the case. Ball says, will Jamal get payback for how he is behaving off the pitch? I don't know. Um, it's a funny one because I think with Jamal in terms of recent, I'm just going to talk about recent events where he had his birthday party, 18th birthday party. You're seeing him, shouldn't laugh, but you're seeing him high dwarfs and you know having a very abnormal celebration. Where you're thinking, why is an 18-year-old doing this sort of moves? So you're thinking the money's gone to his head, or he thinks he's above everyone else, or he's just not mature, sensible enough to make life decisions right now. But I'm also seeing clips of him where he got his number 10 number, and he brought his grandma with him. When he was signing the contract or when he was making that official. So that's the side I want to see. The whole party stuff. I don't know. Like it could just be bad influence from people around him. His dad said, "Look, if he goes out of line, I'll flick him in the ear or make sure he's told that he's doing something wrong and all that sort of stuff." So for me, the key for Yamal is to make sure he's got good people around him, no yes men, and it's people that will tell him straight, "You're doing this wrong. Think about your football first. Don't get distracted by other nonsense because he's 18, he's young, he's going to make mistakes, but let's hope it's not costly mistakes for his career because he's an unbelievable talent. He's generational. We use that word quite a lot nowadays, but I genuinely believe he is a generational talent. So hopefully, the number 10 is not too heavy, when he plays uh next season. But I have the utmost belief that he'll, live up to the bill and perform spectacular performance over the years and will become a Ballon d'Or winner in due course. I feel like he's got that capability. So yeah, hopefully, off the field stuff doesn't overshadow or, you know, ruin his image or legacy in the long run. So hopefully, he's on the right pathway. Um, Elias, he says, any talent or good player? No, right now there's uh, any talent or good player now. Right, right now there's a team to join the LFC. Their time has arrived. I'm just trying to get to his down in terms of what you've written there. But yeah, right now, as in who else we can add to our team, that's a good player. The time has arrived. You're 100% right. We are the most exciting team in world football. We've got the most exciting project. Who could we add? I would like us to sign a midfielder, a centre midfielder. My choice would be Adam Wharton, but I don't think it's a foreseeable target for now. Maybe for next year. I also want us to sign a backup or an understudy or even a successor to Mohamed Salah. The player that I have in mind, I've mentioned him before, is Akiluche, and he plays for Monaco. That's the guy that I think would um, definitely bring an excitement factor to the club. But I feel like he's the next one up when it comes to French football. He's a special talent. So if you haven't seen him, check him out on YouTube. Very, very special player. Abal says, which player will be the surprise this season that people don't expect for the Reds? Good question. It might sound silly that I'm going to mention this player. I actually think it's going to be Frimpong because when we were linked with Frimpong, a lot of fans were quite hesitant, and I was to an extent, but not as much as what I saw from other content creators and what I saw online as well. Um, the reservation or the sort of the assessment of his abilities that he can't defend, but if you look at his history, he's played right back when he was at Man City, then moved over to Celtic, played there as well. But as his career progressed, he ended up playing a bit more further up, played as a right midfielder in the midfield four, and then also played as a right winger for by Leverkusen, but also Netherlands as well. But like I said earlier on, he plays the same way in any three of those positions, so it doesn't make a difference as long as he brings his strengths to the table. He's going to have an impact in the team. Now, I know we played Preston the other day, but even in that game, he was making tackles left, right, and center. Like he showed his defensive capability. I said it before, he's a better defender than Trent, not by a country mile, but he's definitely better. But I feel like what's going to impress people the most is his raw speed. He's electric on the ball. There's no one that's going to get anywhere near him. So I feel like that's the player that will surprise everyone because people haven't watched him much, in my opinion, or have a real idea into what he will bring to the team. So I feel like he's the one that's going to surprise everyone. I know he's a well-known name, but I feel like there's still question marks about him being a right back at Liverpool. I don't have the reservation. I feel like, knowing we've got Kirkers on the right side, I see the vision now where, we've got two attack-minded fullbacks there. So no. Um, that's the name I'm going for. Frimpong right now. Bradley's another one, but I feel like Frimpong's definitely going to have that surprise in him because it's his first season, and some people will be like, "Wow, he's better than I thought he was." So I think that's why I think he's going to give that surprise factor to a number of fans. Uh, Eliar, so he says we need Fofana or Rodrigo as well as Isak. We only have three senior attackers: Salah, Coutinho, Gakpo. Uh, who will stay? So that's why I mentioned earlier on that I think for Liverpool, it would make sense to keep Chiesa and Elliott because if they were to depart, then we're reducing our numbers, and Diaz and Nunes look like they're on the verge of leaving as well. So I agree, it makes sense to have more attackers. Um, if Chiesa was to leave, I would go for Fofana because I feel like Fofana would be the squad player replacement. Whereas if we're gonna have Isak and Ekitike in the same team, like the formation I've got on screen right now, Rodrigo wouldn't fit in there. So let's see. I think we'll need to sign another attacker if Chiesa or Elliot leave. But I think in terms of Darwin Nunes and Diaz, Isak and Ekitike will end up being their direct replacement. So let's see. But I do agree. If players do depart, we need to add more attackers to the squad. Young Junior Bill says Liverpool is a well-run club. They have changed their home midfield in a single transfer, grab Szoboszlai, Maka and Endo. This transfer window is mainly to prepare for life without Mo dynasty incoming. Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying there. Of course, we haven't found a light for that replacement for Salah, but you're finding other solutions on the pitch, i.e., Verts being that number 10, who's going to be the magician in our team. You got Isak or Ekitike, being the strikers in our team. So yeah, I see what you're saying there. So it's very, very interesting times for Liverpool. Bo says, who do you think is the best LFC content creator of Anfield Agenda, Redman TV, Born and Red, and Anfield Rap? Not to sound diplomatic, but they all bring, different elements to the game. So in terms of Anfield Agenda, I know Craig doesn't get the best of reputations, but he's very consistent with his content, and his personality is what showcases his channel. Um, Redman TV, they're probably the originators. They're probably one of the first Liverpool channels on YouTube, from what I can remember, and they've built a fantastic platform where it's very professional. It's like watching a TV channel on their own accord. So no, they've been doing very positive things. Born and Red, I've been very impressed with their content. Shout out to Avi, Asim, and Chin as well, producing some fantastic content. And their work ethic is second to none. Producing shows, in the volume of 2, 3 a day, especially during this off-season time. Great guys, and hopefully, um, maybe something in the pipeline will be where I get on their channel, or they'll come on Football Talk podcast. So something to look forward to, I guess, in the future. And the Apple Rap, I think in terms of their podcast, is very interesting because they always have great takes. It's very, you know, analytical. And I like those kind of. I like listening to those type of content or podcasts because um, they look at things in a different way, and they present information with a lot more thought and research and knowledge as well. So I like listening to podcasts where you can learn a thing or two as well. So everyone brings something to the table. So big up to all of these amazing LFC platforms there. Eliab says we got the fastest right back in the world and the best young right back in the league. Bradley, who is sound defensively. Yep, got a great balance on that right side. 100% agree with you. Bo says just me that was a little bit disappointed that not the youngsters like Nalo, Morrison, and Kumas was not on the tour. Yeah, I think with Nalo, I feel like Nalo's not quite up to that level, if I'm being brutally honest. In terms of Morrison, I'm not seeing much of Morrison, to be fair. Kumas, I don't think he'll be at the club next season, if I'm being honest. I think he'll be loaned out to further his development because I feel like he's not quite ready to push for a position in the first team. So I do expect to see them um, going out on loan or going back to academy level or under 23s and, continuing their development or training with those teams. So yeah, that's probably why they haven't been selected. SSB 28 said big up. We are cooking. Yes, we are. Certainly we are. Not sure how to fit the pieces though. If you look at the screen right now, SSB 28, I've got a vision here where it could fit. Having Ekitike and Salah as inside forwards rather than wingers, and Isak leading the line, and you've got McAllister, Gravenberg, and Verts behind them. So this could be the mix. And because you've got Salah and Ekitike playing as inside forwards, Frimpong and Kirkes will be the fullbacks that bomb down that byline and provide the width and creativity from the flank. So for me, that adds a different dynamic to the team. And I feel like, it will present a huge threat to any opposition. So yeah. You said you start Gakpo. Yeah, I've listed Gakpo as a backup to Ekitike. I think Ekitike might offer something a bit different in that position, but Gakpo will definitely be in the mix. Don't get me wrong. This is just on paper. As the season goes on, form and you know fitness and all that stuff has to be put into consideration. But yeah, definitely, I think you know there's so many systems that I feel like both Ekitike and Isak can fit in. It just presents a most exciting prospect going into next season where we don't quite know how we're going to play. And that's, a level of excitement that, we don't normally get as Liverpool fans. So, it should be very positive sign going forward. And he says, I think attack could be 3-2-3-5. Yeah, it could be once you push players a bit more further up. The two I'm guessing will be Konate and Virgil. The three will be Cronenberg, Kirkes and Frimpong, and then you've got your five there. So yeah, it could work that way, definitely. Um, Bo says, been really impressed by this channel, bro. Let's win the 21 for Diogo. It's just one number 20, 100%. I feel like that has to be in the back of their minds that this is for Diogo. Let's try and make a number 21. Let's try and eclipse United in terms of the number of league titles they've won. So yeah, let's go back to back. Uh, let's keep on going forward with that kind of notion, that belief that we're unstoppable, and that belief that we're going to win titles with this special team. So yeah, positive times going forward, and really appreciate your comment there. You know, I think you're the first. I think it's your first time on the in the live chat anyway. So yeah, appreciate you getting involved with the comments. SSB28 says, "What if we go 4-4-2-2-2?" I'll present that line I spoke about earlier in the show. So that's how it is. So I've got them like this, but I feel like Salah and Verts will be slightly outwards, but it's still a 4-2-2 formation, and that could work as well. And this kind of formation, I expect Ekitike to drop deep at times, so it ends up being, you know, that kind of formation at times in transition. So it can work. That's what I've said. You know, with different formations, we can fit all of these players very, very well. And I feel like even for cover, you know, you've got Jones, Endo, Elliott, Szoboszlai, Chiesa, Gakpo. That is adequate quality to cover these players in the starting lineup. So for me, this would be a very, very complete squad going into next season. Um, but if you want to check the other formations, just watch this on replay. I've gone into a lot more detail. You know, I've listed about 4 or 5 formations. So um, that's the vision that I have. So I do feel like it could work. So it's going to be very, very interesting in terms of, you know, how Arne Slot sees it. You know, how is he going to set the team up into next season? So very exciting prospect there. SSB says, do you think Galactico signings work? Those teams don't do well. I think with the Galactico signings, it worked to an extent in the short term, but in the long term, it probably didn't. I think what happens is, you know, egos might play a part, or you know, a bit of frustration builds in when things don't go their way. So you want to sign players that are amazing in terms of what they bring to the table in terms of quality, but the mentality, the attitude, the sort of production in terms of what they do, that has to be put into account. It can't just be based on talent. You know, I'm a strong believer that when it comes to being a successful footballer, it has to be where 40% is talent and 60% mentality. You know, we've seen so many talented players over the years, but they haven't made it to the grade because the mentality hasn't been there. They haven't got the attitude, that sort of that knack to continue to go, to never give up, to keep going, and be the person that's, you know, first in training and last one to leave. Like, you know, it's the original saying there, but you know, you have to show a work ethic when it comes to trying to be one of the best. And that's what you have to envision yourself. Yes, that should be your benchmark when you're playing, you know, to that level. Because let's be honest, if you've made it to semi-pro or professional level, you know, you're very lucky, because a lot of us dream to be in that position. So if you're in that position, take it with 2 hands, and you know, do the best you can on the field. You know, don't let off the field stuff, you know, digress your focus and all that sort of stuff. Uh, we've seen a lot of players, even in Liverpool colours, that have been really talented, have showcased potential, but the mentality just didn't match at all. And unfortunately, they weren't able to live up to the potential in the end. So mentality is key. That's why Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the best. His mentality is elite. You know, he's great on the ball. He has great technical ability, but it's the hard graft, the hard work he's put over the years that's made him come to that level. So you know, hard work and repetition. I don't think, you know, if you don't put that in your game or anything in life as well, repetition brings you success as well. Like if you keep going, you keep practicing, you keep getting better. So that should be the message. But in terms of Galactical signings, I think they work to the short term. But Liverpool are doing something really special where they're signing players that are the right profile, that have the right mentality. They're hungry for success as well. when the Galacticos were signed, those were players that probably achieved a lot in their career and is just signing over to a big club where they probably earned a bigger salary, and that's all it was in the end. So you got to find the right profile and then make them into a Galactico. That's how I'm seeing Liverpool doing right now. So yeah, that was my answer to that question. Paul says, do you think Joe Gomez will score finally this season? I am praying Joe Gomez scores a goal. I've been, vouching for him for the last couple of years. When I've done watch alongs, there's been times I'm thinking, oh, he's almost done it, but he just fell short. I'm hoping this is the year that he finally breaks that duck. And yeah, I'll be in jubilation mood if he does, because it's deserved. It's a long time coming, so hopefully he's able to do that later on this season. Double D, big up Double D. He always says he said cooking, so I'm appreciating your support there. Thank you, Double D. Um, Bo says, who is the biggest talent in both Liverpool and in the world that you thought would be special, but ended up like nothing? Oh, that's a great question. Ended up like nothing sounds very harsh, doesn't it? Oh, let me have a think. Okay, I'm gonna try and think of recent times. Some people might not like this answer, but let me know in the chat what you think. I'm gonna go with Naby Keita because he came with a huge reputation. He was bossing in the Bundesliga, but when he joined Liverpool, in the end, injuries affected his development. But for me, he was ineffective in the end. So for me, it's Naby Keita. I know a lot of people are not gonna like that answer, but that's the recent memory that I would have of a player that I felt like, you know what? He looks a talent, he should be cooking our team and end up doing zero. Like obviously he played a part in us winning the title, don't get me wrong, but other than that, it was very minimal involvement. So for me, it would be Naby Keita. Um Dante D. Drummond, big up says Allison. I think you've got a lineup here. So this I'm assuming this is the lineup for is this for Palace? Because it seems like a strong lineup. So you've gone for Allison, Bradley, Brownberg, Van Dijk, Kirkes, Mac, Sabozlai, okay. In a hold on a second. So you've got Gakpo goalkeeper, Bradley right back, Brownberg centre back, and Van Dijk centre back. So I don't agree with Brownberg as centre back. That doesn't work for me. Mac as your DM. I wouldn't Mac as a DM. To be fair, Sabozlai as centre mid, Verts as an attacking mid, Salah right wing, Gakpo left wing, and Isak up top. So no, ground back for me at right back. Sorry, centre back. It doesn't work. That's a makeshift position if we have injuries or if we've picked up a red card, for example, then you put him in that role. But no, that shouldn't be his starting position. In terms of the midfield, having a sort of a double pivot midfield, Mac would be the centre mid, not the defensive mid in my eyes, and I would play him alongside Gravenberch. Um, and the rest is fine, I guess. Um, let's hope Isak is the player that ends up joining. Got a comment here from uh Akautu. Apologies if I've butchered your name. Big up yourself for tuning in. Um, is Gay still a possibility for this summer? I believe he is. The current rumor or the current news is that Crystal Palace are open um, and welcoming bids from Premier League teams because they would rather sell him and make money this summer rather than letting him go for free. He shows indication that he doesn't want to sign a new contract. So therefore, Palace are open to negotiating a deal. I think they value him at around £45 million, which for Liverpool is a little bit too high. I think Liverpool are looking around 35, 40 million range. In the end, I think Liverpool get that deal done. So my prediction is that we will see Gahey becoming a Liverpool player in this window. Um, Boyle says, will Isak celebrate when he scores against Newcastle match day 2? Yeah, I've got that fixture pinned on my calendar for sure. And I'm hoping Liverpool, or should I say Isak is wearing a Liverpool shirt that day. It depends how he leaves. If he's been made very frustrated at the club because they tried to block a move to Liverpool, then he would leave, with a bit of a sour taste. But right now he seems to be frustrated. So if he's frustrated and um but still gets his move in the end, then he might be a little bit respectful and not, not celebrate in that manner. But um I don't expect him to do an Adebayo always running across the pitch or anything to that nation. No, sorry. But yeah, I think he'll probably be respectable. That's just the way I think Isak will handle that situation. Um, Um, Dante said that's your opinion. That's fine. However, before last year, no one saw Grab as a DM. Dante offers no added value to the team. You starting exiting over Gakpo is suspect. Uh, the graphic you have in the background is to propose how Isak and Ekitike can fit in the team. I'm not suggesting that's my lineup week in, week out. It's just to kind of present how the dynamics can fit together. Because I think automatically people are thinking, oh, Isak number one striker, Ekitike backup on the bench. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to play together at some point in the season. So I've shown different formations in terms of how they would fit in different systems. Um, in terms of Gravenberch, no one saw that. I saw it, if I'm being honest with you. I watched Gravenberch for the last few years. And I knew in a double pivot he would fit in really well. The key this year would be, if he's played in a single pivot, how does he do? Because he hasn't played that role that much, under Arne Slot. He's played alongside another midfielder. Next season we might play a 4-3-3 where it's a single pivot and you've got McAllister a bit more further up alongside Verts, depending who the other centre midfielder is. Um, so for me, that wasn't a surprise. It was just that he played at such a consistent level. That's what impressed me. What it didn't surprise me. It was more impressive that he did that because at Ajax he played in that role quite a few times. He's played it for the under 21s for Netherlands as well. Especially when we were linked with him that summer, he played in a tournament for the under 21s and played as a DM. So that was no surprise to me. Um, I totally disagree with your comment about Konate offering no added value to the team. I see him as one of the best centre backs in Europe. So, difference of opinion, you know, no problem at all. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. That's why, I've got a football channel. That's why I'm here to have discussions and debates with you guys. So yeah, no sort of issues in regards to that. But yeah, big up for your comment. Thank you for your contribution. Miles says, lovely to see the Newcastle fans have been showed where they belong. They have been a little bit shameless, haven't they, in the last few weeks? They've said quite a few things that just literally caught me off guard. The level of arrogance, the level of I'm trying to think of it. It was really, really weird. They just thought they were above everyone, and I don't know what that energy was. And I know they beat us in the Carabao Cup final, and I've given them credit. They were fantastic on the day, but it was a one-off occasion. They were fantastic on the day. Doesn't mean they are better than Liverpool Football Club altogether. We won the Premier League. We were consistent over 38 games. So yeah, very surprised by. And I'm not going to say everyone. I'm just going to see what I've seen online, and a large part of the Newcastle fan base were a little bit over the top. Not gonna lie, they were a bit too arrogant. Um, they felt very entitled. Where you know, speaking very aggressively about Liverpool. How dare they place a bid or place an approach for their star striker? How dare they? He's got a contract. Why would you approach someone with a contract? That's how football works. Like we respect your player, we admire your player, and it's an area of our team that we want to strengthen. So we made an approach in a legit manner to see if there's sort of any leeway or any room for negotiation. You pretty much showed us that you weren't willing to do that. So we moved on and signed your primary target. And now your star striker wants to move and wants to move to Liverpool. So tables have turned, they're finding it very hard to add players to their squad. So with the Isak money, if they can, if Liverpool get a deal over the line, then that could help in terms of helping their long-term future. So, let's see what happens. But yeah, the energy's been different from Newcastle fans. They were suggesting that if they got Ekatike and Isak, they'd win the league. So I don't know where that energy came from, but hey, like I said, everyone is entitled to their opinion. Uh, K to yeah, Kate. I think that says, "Hey, um, I'm new here, so happy I found the Liverpool streamer. Big up yourself. Thank you for tuning in." Oh, she said, "My name's Kate. How are you?" Big up, Kate. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well as well. Thank you for tuning in. Paul says there is a lot of positivity around our club, but are there any concerns when we go into next season? Do you think? Call me someone that's viewing the glasses half full rather than half empty. I'm not seeing the problems right now. Of course, once we make our signing, then once the window concludes, then we can assess the squad. Is there any gap? Do we lack depth in certain positions? Um, but it's positivity from my point of view. I'm not really seeing any negatives right now. Um, of course, as the season goes on, maybe things will creep in, and then you start analyzing certain aspects of the game or the team or the squad in general. But at this state, no. I'm very pleased in terms of what the club is doing because for the first time in a long time, they're showing ambition in the transfer market. So I can't complain about that. And I feel like they are slowly building a squad that can compete for years and years. And we don't have to do this kind of business every year. Once we've done this business, after next summer will be one or two additions, and then that's how you build on from there onwards. So for me, it's very, very positive in terms of what we're doing. Um, Akuratu says, is there any update concerning Konate's future? So I was speaking about this earlier on. So the current sort of update regarding Konate um, is that he has been offered a new contract, and this is not official news, so don't take it as gospel. But apparently, he's been offered 180K plus bonuses on a 5-year deal. So we're just waiting for a response to see if that meets his requirements. I think he'll probably try and want a little bit more, maybe like a 200K base, and then maybe if it's the terms that they want in terms of Konate and his camp, then maybe we can get a contract extension very, very soon. But for me, I've always said it in regards to Konate, if he doesn't sign before the end of this window, I will be concerned going to next season because there is a strong possibility that he ends up joining Real Madrid. I'm hoping that is not the case. I'm hoping the signing of Ekatike, another Frenchman, helps him to stay on board, and he sees what a great window we're having. So we're buying all these big players. We're moving in the right direction. There shouldn't be a reason to leave Liverpool in my eyes. So I'm really hoping and praying that he signs a new contract because I rate him very, very highly. Um, but yeah, fingers crossed we get some positive news regarding Konate. Kate says, where does Gakpo fit into this team? Would we dare start both Ekatike and Isak? So that's what I've been contemplating today, Kate. I've looked at different formations where I can fit both of them, and I feel like it could work. So sort of the best formation that I have is not this one. This one could work as well, whether you're playing two strikers. Um, but the formation that I'm liking the look of is this one. So it's it says 4-1-2-3 at the top, but it's a 4-2-1-3. But with the front three, they're not playing as out. They're not playing out and out wingers. They're playing more as inside forwards, and that way you've got your fullbacks in Frimpong, Kirkes bombing down that flank, providing the width, and you've got Ekatike and Salah being a bit more inside and being effective around the edge of the box. So this would be the team that I would go for. I'm not saying this team that goes in, week out, but has the quality to cause damage to a lot of opposition. So I think they both can fit in the same team. It will just depend on the setup. But I feel like they have the quality to do a job, a very good job collectively. Um, Kate says, I'm liking what I've seen from Frimpong, but Conor Bradley is boss, ain't he? Yeah, he's been looking very impressive. And that's the great thing about our two players there in Frimpong and Bradley, where they'll be challenging for right back. But if we need a bit more pace up top on the right wing, Frimpong can do that. And I think they can provide a great balance together as well. So neither player is going to feel like they're not going to get games next season. They're both going to get games, and they're both going to contribute to Liverpool's success. So for me, it's positive signs going forward. Um, Bo says, "What will be the Champions League final next season?" Oof. Of course, it depends in terms of the draws and all that kind of stuff. I'd love for it to be Liverpool and PSG. I think PSG, of course, are the champions. They're one of the most exciting teams in Europe, and I think Liverpool are matching them in that regard as well. So the best final for the neutral would probably be Liverpool and PSG. But let's see how the pathways go because obviously, there will be surprises along the way in that Champions League. So yeah, on paper, I guess those are two of the most exciting teams on paper. So that's what I'd go with. Um, so Dante says you are overrate Konate and underrate Szoboszlai. So Szoboszlai has to start. Konate cannot dribble or pass. Teams leave Konate with the ball. In terms of Szoboszlai, I actually rate him very highly. Um, Last season, I was probably one of few content creators that showcased or showed my support for Szoboszlai because before he was signed, I earmarked him as one of my dream signings because I rated him that highly. Um, he's produced a fantastic opening few months of the season. Then second half fizzled out a little bit under Jurgen Klopp, and then last season, I feel like he showed a great account of himself, but in terms of productivity with goals and assists, it wasn't as high as expected. So look, when I present these teams, it's not week in week out. It's just on paper what's the strongest lineup. In this case, I'm not even presenting the strongest lineup. I'm presenting a scenario where I'm trying to fit Isak and Ekitike in one team. So that's the theme of tonight's show. Um, but Szoboszlai would definitely play a lot of games, and I can see Szoboszlai playing in a different role as well. I can see him playing on the left on occasions where he's interchanging with Florian Wirtz quite a bit, and I feel like that's going to be a great relationship on the pitch. He can play a few games in the double pivot if required. He showcased that his passing range and his ability at the latter stages of last season. So I'm a huge fan of Szoboszlai. So for me, I rate him. It's just that in this team, in this scenario, I'm trying to fit Ekitike and Isak in. But in terms of the final team, you never know. Szoboszlai would definitely have a stake in sort of being in the lineup. But it will differ based on who we face as well. So I haven't ruled out Szoboszlai. I'm expecting Szoboszlai to have a fantastic season next season. Um, Kate says Liverpool versus Chelsea, Champions League final. You heard it here first. Okay, that's an interesting take. Um, TK says when Liverpool, yeah, TK says when Liverpool will sign new centre back. Team interested in sign offense player, but team does not interested in sign centre back. Now team have only three senior centre backs. So we are trying to sign a centre back, and he goes by the name of Mark Gahey. But initially, Crystal Palace weren't willing to speak or negotiate, but now they're open to the idea of selling the player because the player has shown indication that he wants to leave Crystal Palace. So because of that, he's pretty much available for purchase, and Crystal Palace are welcoming bids from all of the clubs in the Premier League. Liverpool seem to be in the seem to be the front runner because um, we've already had dialogue with the player, and if you believe some of the rumors, we've already agreed terms, personal terms, with the player. So it's only a matter of time that we agree a transfer fee with Crystal Palace. I think that will be the player that we end up signing. So I expect it to be Gahey, Konate, Van Dijk, and Joe Gomez as our four centre backs starting next season. Wall says to add Dante, is Ibu's job to dribble? Does dribble much? Weird comment. Yeah, in terms of your assessment of Konate, sorry, I didn't even refer to. I was more focused on the Szoboszlai comment there. Um, in terms of his dribbling, I've never really seen Konate's dribbling as an issue. In terms of his passing, he has shown that he can be erratic at times, but I think that's because of the opposition. If they're pressing on him quite a bit, he will like feel a little bit nervous, and he's tries to find the safer pass. But as the time has gone, and last season he showcased it where his passing range appeared a lot better. So he's definitely a game I feel like he's trying to improve and he's working on. So I wouldn't say he's terrible in terms of dribbling. Whenever I've seen him dribble with the ball, like he's one of those players that actually can take the ball, drive with it, carry the ball, and take it forward to the opposition and provides a sort of unpredictable run in the opponent's half. Um, and he does that very well. So dribbling, of course, you don't really associate with defending in that manner, but whenever he needs to carry the ball forward, he does a decent job. So I, for one, rate Konate very, very highly. Of course, it doesn't seem like you do, but like I said, everyone is entitled to their opinion. That's the last comment, and that was the last rumor in regards to Konate today. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to everyone for being part of the show in terms of your comments and engagement. I've seen a lot of new names today, so really appreciate you rocking with me today and being part of the show. Um, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll give my shouts to everyone involved today. So shout out to Oz and Kabak, shout out to Hamza, shout out to Mazzy, shout out to Rashid Painting, shout out to Brazy, shout out to Kieran, shout out to Bob, shout out to Tafsir, shout out to Mazzy, shout out to Sam, shout out to Psychedelic Knight, shout out to Adam, shout out to Redbird. Shout out to Uncle Rod's TV. Shout out to Bowl. Shout out to Eddie's Football Waffle. Who else do we have? Shout out to Ilyas. Shout out to Eliab. Shout out to Young Junior. Shout out to Bowl. Shout out to SSB28. Shout out to Double D. Shout out to Dante. Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Akahatu. Shout out to who else do we have? TK. If I've missed you, apologies, but shout out to everyone today. Really appreciate your engagement as always. In terms of upcoming shows, if there's any sort of breaking news or any developments tomorrow, I will be doing a show tomorrow. It will be my weekly show. So I normally do shows on a daily basis, but 1 week will be labeled as the Liverpool Transfer Talk Show. So that show will be a sort of a quick fire show where I discuss all the latest rumors that have circulated in the last few days and bring it as part of a collective show. And that show you can actually listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music as well. So tune in for that tomorrow. Time I'd probably say will be around 11 p.m. So best thing to do is hit that notification bell so you know what time I go live. And you can also follow me on social media for all the latest updates. You can follow me at Aussie.ftp on Instagram, and you can also follow me at Aussie_FTP on X/Twitter. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.